Welcome back, everyone. Today's 5th episode of Back to Earth's Compost 101 crash course will cover the different types of composting. A concern we get a lot here at Back to Earth is whether you can compost if you live in an apartment, if you have a busy schedule, or if you don't have the greenest thumb. We are going to talk about the 3 main types of composting: cold composting, hot composting, and vermicomposting. The hope is, by the end of this video, you know which type of composting will suit you and your lifestyle the best. Let's get started. This composting is considered cold because it does not reach the same high temperatures as in hot composting. In other words, it is passive because you are not turning the compost, or rather, not stimulating microbe activity. This composting is ideal for individuals with less time on their hands, with busy schedules, because it requires less maintenance. Although we discourage using meat, fish, and dairy products and other types of home composting, cold composting truly cannot include these types of products because of the lack of hot temperatures. For this same reason, you should avoid putting weeds and invasive plants inside your pile. Hot temperatures are necessary to kill off pathogens and harmful bacteria. Essentially, you don't want to put anything in that could introduce these detrimental organisms. With cold composting, you pile your food scraps and you just wait. However, since the pile won't reach high temperatures, it will take roughly around a year to fully decompose into ready-to-use compost. If you're an impatient person, I wouldn't recommend cold composting. Next, we have hot composting, the most popular form, which is a faster process of organic matter decomposition. For future videos, by the way, when we refer to the composting process, we will be referring to hot composting, since it's the method we use here at Back to Earth. Food scraps and brown material take around 3 to 4 months to fully decompose into compost. You typically get more finished compost when you use hot composting, since the hot temperatures break down food scraps faster. Since piles of hot compost reach very high temperatures, meat and dairy products can technically be included. However, we don't recommend you do, because not only is the risk of pathogens increased, but the decompositions of these items tend to be the reason for smells, pests, and insect attraction. As indicated by its name, hot compost piles, when maintained correctly, will heat up within 24 to 36 hours to the ideal temperature of 141 to 155 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot composting requires more maintenance because the temperatures need to be regulated. When you form your pile, especially if exposed to direct sunlight, you have to make sure you aerate and water it about once every week. This way, your pile doesn't get too hot. The last type of composting we will be talking about in this video is vermicomposting, otherwise known as worm composting. Now, don't be scared. I promise this is not as crazy as it sounds. In fact, this form of composting is perfect if you live in an apartment but are eager to make a difference. Compared to the 2 previous types we discussed, vermicomposting only needs 1/3 of the space. To give you a better perspective, for a family of 4, hot composting typically requires about 5 by 5 feet of space, compared to 2 by 2 feet for vermicomposting. Vermicomposting requires very little to no maintenance, because, well, the worms do all the work. Vermicomposting kits, including the worms, can usually be bought online, and the only tool you would potentially need is a hand shovel. These worms break down the organic material into high-quality compost, called castings. 1 pound of mature worms can eat up to half a pound of organic material per day. The castings will usually take up around 3 to 4 months to be used with soil. Although the previously mentioned composting processes are the main ones used around the world, there exist many more types of specialized, intricate types of composting that we will cover in individual videos later on. To give you a quick example, bokashi is a composting process that surprisingly involves an anaerobic process because it relies on carbon sources like bran or rice to ferment the collected food scraps. This process is really fascinating, but a bit more difficult, so please stay tuned if you're interested. Remember, when you're trying to figure out which kind of composting is best for your lifestyle, don't be afraid to pick one that is realistic to your abilities. It is better to do something correctly, especially when it comes to processes that have the potential to help the earth, like composting. There is no type of composting that's superior to any other. They are all just different paths to the same destination. Thank you so much for watching!